is Cindy Silviana. I am honored to be your MC for this special event celebrating International Women's Day 2023. Women with Impact has been East Ventures initiative since early 2022. The program aims to support Southeast Asia's women in the tech and investment industry in enhancing their leadership skills, founding, and developing their businesses and goals. Women with Impact is part of East Ventures' commitment to supporting gender equality and empowering all women and girls as outlined in the Sustainable Development Goals SDG number 5. As we all know, the tech industry has been traditionally male-dominated, and however, that is changing because we're here this evening to celebrate the women making waves in this field. And according to the United Nations, the theme for International Women's Day 2023 is Digital Innovation and Technology for Gender Equality. And aligning with this topic, we will discuss how women can empower each other to grow in the technology industry. But before we have a further panel discussion, I will explain our agenda today. So we will start a keynote speech by a woman who is a true inspiration to us all. She is a former Minister of Trade and Tourism and recently retired from the Managing Director of Development Policy and Partnership at the World Bank. However, she is still active on the United in Diversity Foundation Board of Trustees. She is Ibu Mari Elka Pangestu. But while Ibu Mari couldn't join us in person as she resides in the US, we are honored to share her pre-recorded keynote speech and an interview with Afina Sugiarto, partner at East Ventures. And after the keynote session, we will have a panel discussion featuring female industry leaders. They will share their experiences, insights, and ideas on how women can empower each other to grow in the technology industry. And we hope this discussion will be informative and inspiring for all of us. And following the panel discussion, we have a special program announcement that we are excited to share with you. And this program is designed to support and encourage women entrepreneurs in our community. And it has the potential to make a real difference in their lives. And finally, we will end this evening with dinner and networking. And we encourage you to take this opportunity to connect with other like-minded women, exchange ideas and information, and build meaningful relationships. So, without further ado, let's hear from Ibu Mari Elka Pangestu and learn from her wealth of experience and insights.
Thank you for inviting me today to the Women with Impact by East Ventures Women's Day program. On this occasion and in celebration of International Women's Day, I have three main messages focusing on women entrepreneurs. First is the case for investing in women. Second, how to address the deepening inequalities. And third, the need for an ecosystem approach to address the key constraints. So first, on equal women and girls, which is really about smart economics and development. When women participate as policymakers, entrepreneurs, workers, and community leaders, societies will prosper. The private sector is also increasingly committed to reducing gaps between men and women, not just because it's the right thing to do, but because it makes business sense. The evidence for this case is based on a World Bank and other studies as follows. Accelerating gender equality, we have found, can unleash trillions of dollars in economic potential. Closing gender employment gaps would raise long-run GDP per capita by almost 20% on average across countries. Besides these economic gains from a greater role of women entrepreneurs, the case for investing in women entrepreneurs is also strengthened by these findings. boosting women entrepreneurs can help face the impact of various development crises, whether it's the pandemic, climate change, conflict, and forced displacement, because it enables women to accumulate earnings, assets, and economic power. They are then more likely to invest in their children's health and education, improving human capital in the future. In developing countries, it is also estimated that 17% of women run their businesses and a further 35% aspire to do so in the future. Over half of working women in developing countries view entrepreneurship as a path to economic empowerment, and this is twice as in developed countries. Women-led businesses also tend to employ more women, so creation of jobs for women is also achieved. Finally, innovations pioneered by women entrepreneurs tend to disproportionately target and benefit other women, who are often poorly served as solutions designed by and for men. So, there is a need to unleash their potential to create and grow women-owned businesses. But secondly, we see that there is continued gender inequality. It is becoming steeper, particularly as countries face the various crises and reversals in development caused by COVID-19. Even before COVID-19, of course, women businesses were already facing inequalities, but these inequalities actually deepened during the COVID-19. The pandemic impacted women more than men because of high engagement in affected service sectors, such as hospitality or the informal sector, increased unpaid care burdens, and greater economic, social, and physical vulnerabilities. Recent data and analysis have also shown that women-led businesses were more likely to experience a decline in sales and profits during the COVID-19 pandemic, and more likely to close than those owned by men. In the first year of the pandemic, women-led firms had loan applications rejected at twice the rate of male-led firms. And despite venture funding soaring globally by 95% in recent years, the share received by women fell. And it was also found that women-owned businesses were less able to adapt to the need to migrate to digital technology compared to men, whether before or during the pandemic. The inequalities faced by women entrepreneurs have the following impacts. Women are 25% less likely than men to start a business. Women tend to go to businesses in lower margins, lower growth sectors, and thus productivity and profits of women-owned SMEs are all around half of those of men-led businesses. Women are 36% less likely than men to also have high growth expectations. And early stage firms that can access capital are able to grow 30% faster, but women entrepreneurs have difficulty in getting access. So third, how should we then close the gender gap in access to economic opportunities, earnings, and productivity? We found that if barriers were eliminated and women could be empowered to create and grow businesses at the same rate as men, we will actually be able to realize an estimated $5 to $6 trillion net value addition that could be generated around the world. So based on what we know, studies and surveys, we identified the issues that are faced most by women entrepreneurs. And we identified what is needed is an ecosystem holistic approach to address 4 pillars: financing, skills and networks, markets and technology, and an enabling environment. So first, on access to financing. Women face more trouble accessing financing and capital than male entrepreneurs. And in fact, we have identified a daunting 1.7 trillion financing gap globally. Why is that? Women face collateral constraints and social norms, and this is accounting for this gender credit gap. For example, one of our studies, we show that due to gender bias by lenders, women-led enterprises in Vietnam have a 34% higher likelihood that their loans will be denied compared to men-led firms. So we need to increase women's control over financing by combining access to bank accounts with skills training, as well as shifting social norms and empowering women entrepreneurship. Some of the ideas of what is needed are: we need to have financial products and services tailored to the needs of women-owned businesses, such as cash flow lending. Digital technologies can offer new delivery channels. We need to combine finance and training. We need to give women grants for especially the women micro entrepreneurs. And we also need more gender diversity at financial intermediaries. That's why I really welcome the Women with Impact East Venture initiative. What we are talking about in this event, we need more female investors, fund managers, and loan officers. And we need to have gender intelligence training for employees in banks as well as financial services sectors so they can be more effective in tackling gender biases in lending decisions. We also need better data, which is disaggregated by gender so that we can really see how we can target and provide assistance to women-owned businesses, as well as identify. Actually, you will find a lot of data that women-owned businesses do better in repaying their loans, etc. So it's also a positive metric that you can generate. Second, on access to skills and networks. Women are also less able to access the skills and networks needed compared to men. And what is needed are women training programs that integrate gender-specific content, as well as innovative delivery mechanisms of training programs. You will see repeatedly this recommendation that we need to ensure spouse support. So a lot of the training programs, at least the ones that I'm familiar with, they ask not just the women to come, but they also ask the husbands to come or other family members to come. And we also provide transportation because a lot of times they cannot get to where they need to go for the training and so on. And we need targeted training programs, which is integrated with mentoring, networking. That's why a lot of women training programs, we do it in groups or kelompok. And we need to also provide training and empowering on socio-emotional skills. One of the big issues I have found in my 30 years of working in this area is women lack the confidence. So there's a lot of confidence building that we need to do at the beginning when they're just thinking about entering into business. And third, access to new markets and technology. Less than 2% of global value chain purchases are from women-led firms, and therefore inclusive value chain programs to provide access to women-owned businesses will be needed. So this comes from the private sector, from the big businesses, to have a conscious policy of wanting to source from women-owned businesses. And this needs to be, of course, combined with the support that's needed for them to be able to access these value chains. Other empowerment programs will be needed for access to corporate venture capital and public procurement opportunities, support for being able to access domestic and international markets, including the opportunity that e-commerce provides. Mentorship and spousal support programs and providing role models of successful women entrepreneurs are also other important areas. Finally, we need an enabling environment that addresses legal and institutional and social issues. Women still experience legal, regulatory, and policy barriers, including difficulties registering business and getting loans and changing social and cultural norms. Men are 25% more likely than women to actually start a business. And we found that there is a strong evidence if you can improve the gender bias laws and policies, you will have a big boost in women's employment and entrepreneurship. The World Bank has a publication called Women, Business and the Law. It's published every 2 years. It looks at the laws and regulations and institutions that affect gender equality across 190 countries. And in particular, the entrepreneurship indicators look at barriers to women's ability to start and run a business. And we found that worldwide, women still face significant practical and regulatory barriers to becoming successful entrepreneurs. And this is related to gender biased discrimination access to credit as well as opening businesses. We need to change these laws and regulations. In the implementation, of course, that is big difference. You could have equal rights for women to get open businesses and get credit, but in the implementation, just as we mentioned earlier, there can still be gender biases in the implementation. So we need to address it. That's why we need to address it holistically. And there is also gender differences in property and inheritance laws. And so giving women the ability to control assets can enhance their bargaining power, boost agency. And we found also that it alters the household investment patterns in a positive way. So this is another area to be addressed, making sure women have equal access to property and assets. And finally, social cultural factors and gender norms. This is really a harder area to address, but they often limit women entrepreneurs in being able to leverage resources from the various support programs. So therefore, access to mentors, networks, and integrating spouse and family members will help to grow women-owned businesses. Finally, expanding quality childcare can also yield a lot of benefits for women to be able to be employed, be productive, and also has the positive impact on children. So, in conclusion, investing in women is smart economics, development, and business. But we need to address the inequalities they face and address the ecosystem they face in a holistic way. And this will require partnerships between the government, private sector, and all the groups who care about empowering women, many of which are in the room today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ibu Mari, for the inspiring keynote and joining us today during the Women with Impact program by East Ventures. We are very honored to have you to celebrate this year's International Women's Day 2023. Among your many amazing accomplishments, you have served as Indonesia's Minister of Trade from 2004 to 2011, Indonesia's Minister of Tourism and Creative Economy from 2011 to 2014, and most recently, you're the Managing Director of Development, Policy, and Partnerships of the World Bank. I'd like to start by asking if you can share a few initiatives from the World Bank related to women's empowerment, particularly how it relates to Indonesia and Southeast Asia.
Yes, thank you, Avina, for your question. You know, the World Bank group has a very gender focus. We have mainstream gender for the last, I would say, 15 years. So all of our programs have a gender lens, if you like. This is why my last point about the importance of a holistic engagement is key. Because, I mean, after 15 years of doing this gender mainstreaming, we have found that really what is needed is a holistic engagement on women's economic empowerment. So what we do in general, including with countries like Indonesia, is we work with the government as well as through the government with the private sector. How do you address the policy barriers? How do you address issues of workplace safety and social norms? And how do we promote access to finance, technology? A big topic that we are doing now is how do you actually provide support for women so that they can go back to work or they can do their business by providing childcare facilities or support. Also, I think the other big issue is how do we shift women to male-dominated professions. This is why a holistic approach is needed. And this starts at the education level. You want women to be able to have equal access to education, including what's called STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, because tendency is for women not to be going in those sectors. So we really need to balance that, starting from the education side and then in all the access and support to reduce the discrimination and the inequalities. And so we support public and private sector clients in transformative ways to address the legal and policy distortion, the social norms, and providing information and providing greater voice and agency. We have a very interesting initiative called the Women Entrepreneurs Finance Initiative, which since 2017 allocated $353 million to support over 200,000 women-led SMEs in more than 60 countries in the last 5 years. And it addresses those 4 pillars to help women entrepreneurs get to where they need to go. And it addresses it in a systematic way. And I just wanted to give you one Indonesian example. We actually helped Bank NISP, Ibu Parwati, to issue, I think it's $100 million bond or financing that she could get for women-led businesses. And we didn't give her the 100 million, but we helped her to structure the financing that she could raise to be able to support women-owned businesses. So that's just to give you an example of the things that we could be doing.
Thank you, Bu Mari, on that. We are at East Ventures. We are also very keen to work with all the stakeholders as well to advance, the women with participation in the workforce and women in the leadership positions too. I think related to leadership, we'd like to learn about your key inspirations and motivations in your leadership journey to inspire more female leaders, founders, professionals who are listening to this on this International Women's Day.
I think my main message is I mentioned in opening remarks about the issue of confidence. I think a lot of women tend to not be confident. Even though they're capable, that they're able, a lot of times they feel that they're not confident enough to be able to do things or to take a leadership role. And I think this is my big learning in my journey, that, we have to work at it, but we need to show oftentimes that we are the best in what we do. And that is really the best way for us to go up in the leadership ladder. In my own leadership journey, I have found that mentors and networking were two very important support for me. So I had lots of mentors, not just women. A lot of them were actually men, because I'm sure in the financial sector that's quite similar also. It is quite a male-dominated area, and I'm an economist. That's my field. So when I first came back to Indonesia, I was actually the first woman to have a PhD in economics. So I was always kind of the only women in the room, if you like, in the economics field at that time. You are talking about 30 years ago. Now, of course, totally different. But you need to then be able to have good mentors that will tell you what you're doing right, but most importantly, what you're doing wrong, and help you to correct and adjust and adapt. Yeah, which is what a lot I had to do. I came back to Indonesia after being abroad for a long time. And so I didn't have any networks. I didn't go to school here. I didn't have much networks. So I had to develop networks. So what I did was I joined a lot of associations, a lot of groups, and you just be active in those groups. And then you develop the networks over time. And you need to maintain them and not just reach out to them when you need them. And they will help you in many ways. And I would hope that the group today, your meetings today, is already part of networking, because we really need to support each other and hopefully find ways to actually work together and collaborate for a better outcomes. I think finally, my own observation working in development for 30 years, women are actually very resilient. And one of the inspirational moments that I've had is when I was a trade minister after the Jogja earthquake. Whenever there's a natural disaster, we as government, we all have to go immediately to the site. So the day after the earthquake, I went to Bantul, which was one of the most seriously affected areas. And I went to the market because I was a trade minister. I'm in charge of markets. And this is 4 a.m. in the morning. It was dark, but there was a woman selling chicken and vegetables. Not a lot, but she was selling chicken and vegetables. And I'm just telling you this, the resilience of this woman. And then I talked to her. I said, "Where's your stand?" She pointed to the market that had totally collapsed. That was my stand. It's all gone now. So I said, "Why are you here trading?" I said, "Well, people have to eat. I have to eat. I have to continue working." "How did you get the money?" "Oh, we collected money from our family, and we decided that we should continue to work and continue our trading business." That kind of inspired me. I always have the image of that woman. I wish I had remembered her name, because she is the one that we really want to help and empower. And there are many millions of them like that. And this is really, I would say, the power and the empowerment of investing in women.
Thank you, Bumari, for sharing the inspirations and resilience. It's very heartwarming to hear, firsthand story from you. Another question that we have, and given the limited time, I think we'll leave it. We imagine there are various challenges that you face in relation to breaking barriers. Can you share about one of your largest challenge and how did you overcome them?
I think we live in a society where being a woman, where we are still not used to having women bosses. So I think one of the biggest challenges I had, especially when I was in government, is being a woman boss, right? I found it very challenging because there's a cultural issue as well as a silent resistance. They will not show it openly, but they can show it quietly by resisting or not following what you've asked to do. I thought a lot about it and I observed what is the best way for me to manage this. So I manage it in different ways. I think one way is to just be very open and show that, that you don't know everything and that you are willing to listen and allow for a lot of engagement so that they will always feel that some level of discomfort, suspicion even about you as a woman boss or me as a minority. That's another challenge I had. But if you can bring them to their comfort level to see that you are really what you are there to do your job, and my job was really to help people. I was a government minister, and my main motivation to become a government minister is I wanted to help people. I wanted to write the policies. I want to improve the institutions. So it took a while, but I think I was able to not to convince everybody, but try to make it. This is a team effort. It's not me. It's about us, and it's about us being the best ministry. It's about us being the best team to serve the people, etc., etc. I try to build up the corporate identity so that they feel they are not threatened by having a woman boss. The second thing is what I tried to do was also to introduce a merit-based system where you really are being promoted based on merit and in a very transparent way. Yeah. And that allowed me actually to be able to promote. I was very proud of this. I think by the time I left, 30% of upper and middle management in my ministry were women. And that was also, it helped to balance the kind of imbalances that existed before. And then finally, I think you should be in a position where my position has always been, I want the idea or the initiative to work. It doesn't have to be about me or me getting credit. So I'm quite happy not to get the credit. In a government, you have to get other cabinet ministers to support your decision, and of course the president to support your decision. So you go out and convince others to accept the idea, and even also be the one to feel that it is them who initiated the idea. And even if it is coming from them, I'm very fine with that. I will totally support it, because I know my endpoint is not me getting credit for the idea, but my endpoint is that the idea will be accepted and implemented by everybody, right? So I think taking that kind of stance will also help. We are always challenged if we are the woman boss or we are the one leading a particular initiative. There is always going to be challenges around that. So if I can just keep myself focused on what is my objective, then I always try to say, okay, what is the best way for me to achieve that objective?
Thank you so much, Bu Mari. It's been a very inspirational session today. We'd like to thank you again for your time and wishing everyone a wonderful International Women's Day.
Yes, happy International Women's Day.
Thank you, Bu Mari, for sharing valuable insights and experiences. And it is clear that achieving gender equality in workplace, particularly in the leadership positions, it is not an easy feat, but it is crucial. So Ibu Mari's words reminds us that despite the challenges of being a woman boss or leading an initiative, staying focused on our objectives is the key. And speaking of initiatives, our next segment will be the panel discussion, which titled Tech for Gender Equity, Empowering Women, Improving Livelihoods. And we are very fortunate to have a group of experts with us today to discuss this important topic. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming our distinguished speakers and moderators to the stage. Ardelia Apti, Chief Executive Officer of Mapan. Indri Benz, Grace Tahir, co-founder of Everest Media and Medico. Isabella Wibowo, TV News and Media Partnerships of YouTube Indonesia. Welcome. And the last but not the least, our lovely moderator, Melissa Iren, partner at East Ventures, to the stage to kick off the session.
Hello, good, I call it like late afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here, and once again, happy International Women's Day to all of us. Again, very happy to welcome you at Women with Impact by East Ventures. It's actually our 5th event. We have hosted it since 2022, and now this is actually the first one we hosted for 2023. So glad to see like familiar and also new faces that's actually joining us over here. My name is Melissa Irene. I'm partner at East Ventures. I'm honored to be the moderator of today. I think we will learn a lot from the panel session and the practicals on how each of the amazing ladies over here are undergoing the way they look at women with impact. I think we learned a lot also from the session of Ibu Mari just now. I don't know, like I felt like very inspired by the content that she's sharing, the motivation, and also like how mission driven is also important in doing that. I think just key takeaway, I think we learned that the importance of network to increase the power of connections that you have, as well as conquering your self-doubt. This is part of the important one for us to actually excel as women. Over time, we don't feel very confident about it, but it is actually one ingredient for us to be successful. So we'll continue to the panel session, but allow me to give some prelude. In today's rapidly evolving technological world, the impact of technology on our daily lives cannot be overstated. The increasing accessibility and affordability of technology have created opportunities for individuals and communities to improve their lives in numerous ways. However, despite these opportunities, women continue to be underrepresented in technology sectors as consumers and technology producers. It's not only a loss for the women themselves, but it is also a loss for society as a whole, as women bring unique perspective and skills to the table. Focusing on the role of technology in empowering women and improving their livelihood is vital to address this imbalance and promote gender equality. Through technology, women can access new market, information, resources, enabling them to take control of their lives and reach their full potential. We will explore the importance of tech for gender equity and how it can be leveraged to empower women and improve their livelihoods. So again, welcome to all the panelists, and I would like to please have some time for you to introduce yourself and share a little bit about your company. So I might be starting with Ardelia.
Okay, hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Ardelia, can call me Ardel. Currently, I'm the CEO of Mapan. So a little bit about Mapan. In summary, Mapan is an app that caters digital arisan. So maybe a lot of you is already familiar with the arisan method, but our target segment is more to the mid to low income communities. So moms that don't really have kind of like their own income, typically are housewives. They can become the arisan leaders for us and basically organize arisan groups in their communities and become the champion of the people around them to basically save using arisan as a method, right? Because it's more fun, it's something that they already know to do it, and kind of like repurpose it as a way for them to buy their aspired household items. So that's what we do. Happy to be here. Happy International Women's Day.
Hi everybody, my name is Grace Tahir. So I've been in the healthcare industry for maybe older than you guys, 20 years. My mother hospital, that's a family business. An extension to that, going to digital health, which is Medico that Melissa just now mentioned. And just last year, exactly last year, I started a new company with my partner called Everest Media, where maybe some of you see my content as a content creator. So that's how I busy myself these days. Thank you guys.
Hi everyone, my name is Bella. I'm working as partnership manager in YouTube Indonesia. Basically what we do in Indonesia is helping the content creators and the publishers as well to strive. Especially like Ibu Grace here is one of our content creators, so I'm so happy to meet her in person.
Thank you everyone for the introduction. I think first would like to start off with question maybe firstly for Bella and Ardelia. So women are employed predominantly in jobs requiring low STEM skills, which puts them more at risk at losing their jobs as a consequence of automation. As you guys are in tech companies, can you discuss your personal journey as women in tech and what are your thoughts about this?
In my journey joining tech industry, when I first graduated from school, I got accepted into banking industry. So I used to work about 3 years in private banking before I jumped into Google actually. So I worked with Google almost 10 years, a little bit more than 10 years right now. My observation throughout the 10 years is the biggest one is from the family. The biggest challenge to join a tech company is actually from family, because not only maybe you are equipped with the skills, or you have a certificate in technology, but if your family doesn't approve you and to join a tech company because they want you to pursue something else that is more safer for women to strive, it's another challenge for you to actually like in peace, like e-class to join the tech company, because joining the company is not an easy task, not an easy start for me. So maybe for me in my journey is from house first.
Yeah, same. Cause my first tech startup journey was with Gojek, and it was way back then. I think 2016, so it was still a small company. Same. I think my parents were like, "What is that? What is this ride-hailing company?" Right? Because it was not a thing. But I think soon after joining, I also did not know like how I was gonna make space in something that is called like a tech startup, right? But then I realized this is a very chaotic situation. I came from a consulting background, and I soon realized that there is actually a big space for generalists who are typically women, because I think we've learned so far that even for tech companies with really good tech, but with really bad kind of like business operation, they also do not survive, right? So I do think, although it seems like, oh, you're not a tech person entering the tech startup, right? There's actually a big space to balance, because people who are typically very focused in tech, they don't have these things about like the business side, the leadership style, etc. So for me, the most important thing was approaching it with the intention of knowing what are the skills that I have to be really excellent at as generalist. I quickly deduced that, I think, through experience, to be like, one, have like really high ownership, because you basically don't have expertise, so you really have to kind of like grab the opportunities in front of you and say that you can do it. Second, be very organized, be very structured in how you approach things, and really work on your way of influencing people with things that you are comfortable at and you know that you can be really great at, right? So I never tried to kind of like be more on the STEM side, rather kind of like there is a gap here that I can fill in by not becoming a STEM person, and how do I become excellent at that? Yeah.
Questions that I have for you. Actually, Ardelia has very interesting background. So you started as an intern at Gojek, is it? At Mapan, 4 months, and then now you are actually the CEO. Now Ardelia is actually CEO of Mapan after 10 years of returning. So the question is, what is like for you, especially it's a 10 years difference as a woman in male-dominated industries. How does it compare, like 10 years ago versus today? And what are your plans now that you are a comeback and I would say stronger female? What is your plan as a women leader in pursuit of empowering women?
Yeah. So I think the biggest difference is, of course, the amount of women leaders, right, in companies is like vastly, very different compared to what it was before. But I think one thing that we also discussed before this session, I feel that it is not always necessarily because like the company is discriminatory towards women, etc. It's because now women have more courage, right? And I think I can speak that about myself too, right? And a turning point for me in the journey was, I think, realizing that the limitation that I had was not what society think I can or cannot do as a woman. It's more about what I myself think I can or cannot do as a woman, right? And so it becomes a very different journey. Like, you're not optimizing for your audience, but you're optimizing for what makes you comfortable.
And that means kind of like the first point that we discussed, kind of like leaning into things that you know that you could be really great at, right? Things that you can specialize into, and building on that so that you're comfortable, and then you can be confident, and then you can become a leader, and so forth and so on, right? So I think that's kind of like the biggest difference that I see, and I see more women are becoming more and more like that because we have this type of forum, so and we can share that, oh my god, all of us are insecure, right? And it's not just us, etc. So I think that's kind of like the biggest change and turning point for myself. Regarding Mapan, I think the plan is always to kind of like continue building the technology that we have, very, very targeted and very relevant to not only solving the women's issues, but highlighting the opportunities. So for example, we take the nature of women as influencers in their communities, and we make that also as features in our app, and I can talk about that in the next point. And continue doing that, right? But I think most importantly is to breaking as people, right, to break the stigmas around kind of like women, the blockers of women, etc., and really shifting, the external optimization to the internal optimization for me, and sharing more about that. That has been a joy. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Del, for, I think a lot of people would relate to that, and I think it's a consistently topic that we say that the self-doubts, it's not really about the externalities, right? It has to start from ourselves as well. So maybe continuing on you, while you briefly talk about Mapan. So as you have shared, Mapan is initiated from Arisan concept, but what inspired you or like the co-founding team to dive into this niche vertical? And can you share also how has your solution empower women communities, and we did talk a little bit about it, improving their livelihoods?
Yeah. So the founder of Mapan, Aldi Haryo Prapotomo. So the idea was very high level, right? How do we solve financing issues for the mid to low income communities, which I think a lot of startups are trying to solve. And I think how he then arrived at Arisan was he believed that we have to take something that is already a local custom, so that you don't need to shift the behavior so drastically for people that don't know technology, and then you have to shift their behavior. It's quite a long stretch. So I think that's the first thing. And the second thing is, I think, understanding that gap of financing is mostly in women, which is, I think, Bu Mari covered today. So for them, they don't have any income, etc. If they want to start their own business, they cannot do it, right? And so also creating a space where Arisan can be a place where they can get income as the Arisan group leaders, while also becoming the champion of financial planning savviness to the Arisan members around them, right? And becoming the bridge of trust for us, to our target audience. So that's kind of like the idea about the whole thing. The impact is in two folds. I think for the agents, it's mostly income. So for 60% of our agents, this is their only income. And for almost 90% of them, there is an increment of the total household income because of Mapan. For the members, it's more about kind of like, I finally am affording the stuff that I need, not through kayak lintah darat, right? That has like 200% kind of like in loan sharks. I have this in my pitch deck. I cannot that have like 200% interest rate, etc. Like they're using something that is fun, it's saving, there is no interest, etc. So I think that's kind of like the two streams of impact that we try to build with the products. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Thanks, Del. Now I actually want to move to Grace. They say like experience is gold, right? Like. Sorry? So the speaker. Okay. Yeah, experience is gold. I think you own a lot of experience. You definitely can share.
Even I'm old. I can say that.
No, I'm not saying. But I think there's a piece of something uniquely to you, and I think it's very great to share with others, because other people do share like the struggles of doing entrepreneurship while you are also holding a responsibility as a mother in the family. You are a mother of three kids, and then you have developed 3 babies, like you do Maya Pada, you did Medico, and then now you incubated Everest, right? I would imagine the struggles on going through the 3 different iterations of 2 early stage companies even. So I would like you to share what are the barriers you felt when you start on this entrepreneurship journey, and then how did you navigate to be able to stand where you are today?
I think the one word to answer that would be time, right? You know, as women, we are always pressed about the time. I think a lot of us probably have, you know, I don't know how many of you probably who are single and you go to your family and they always ask you like, when you could get married, or when you have children, things like that. So they don't ask the guys, they always ask the girls, right? The same thing with women, you know, with work, you know, there's always that issue with time, right? Like you said just now, the balance between work and life, is only asked to female entrepreneurs. They never ask this to the, you know, to the male the businessman, right? So time for me is the biggest barrier, obviously, because we're just one person, we have to do all of these things. And for me, my biggest regret actually is letting time just kind of go by without making my first startup. Like I did my first startup when I was in my late 30s already. You know, that was not even Medico, that was like this photography app thing for BlackBerry at the time. So because at that time I was so afraid. You know, I was starting my family with my kids and they were still quite young. So I thought, okay, you know, my role has to be more at home and just do my family business in the hospital. That's comforting, right? I mean, that's kind of secure. So I didn't dare to do anything outside of that. So until one point, it's like, you know what, screw this. I really want to do something out of my own, right? So I started doing all this, what's it called, this tech thing. Some of them failed, and then we had Medico, that's still going on until now, and then also Everest, because that's my thing that I've wanted to do since I was in grade 1, which is to become a movie director, right? So we talk about work and life balance. I think if you say, how do I overcome it? I can honestly say it's still a struggle, even until right now. There's going to be opportunity costs when you think about this balance. There's never a balance, actually. But what you can do is actually, the best that you can do is realize every single day what is important for that day. So there's going to be time when, you know, by the way, when I say this, I'm very, very privileged because my children, for example, they have helpers at home. Some of you might not have that access to babysitters and things like that, right? So I'm talking from a person who's very, very privileged, by the way, guys, yeah? And also have my own company, so I'm very privileged in some of my time as well. It's very flexible, right? But having said that, I just focus on the day right now. Like today, my time before this actually is for my family, for my grandmother. So now I'm here for work, and later I have to do work again at night, right? So I just focus on the schedule every single day. There's gonna be time when the kid's gonna complain, yeah, you know what, too bad. I tell them, you know, I'm here working, so that, because by the way, I have 3 girls. All my kids are girls, right? From 17 to, 9 years old. And since they were kids, I always tell them that you have to work like me. So I have to be an example to them. So like you say, you know, you complain about my time, well, tough, you know what I mean? I mean, one day you're gonna have your own challenge. I'm just giving you a preview of what you're gonna do one day, right? You know? So I mean, suck it up, yeah? Don't complain about it, right? You know, and you enjoy all this lifestyle, you know, because your mom is working, you know? It's a two source income kind of thing, right? Right? So I mean, it's all but reality. You know, it's realistic. You know, you're not gonna have it all. You cannot have it all. I don't hear people say you can have it all. You don't. You can't. Right? You just do the best with what you gotta do. That's all.
And how important do you think is your spouse support to be able to do all this?
I think the support of everybody is important. Him, the children, obviously understanding. I think my biggest issue actually is not from the spouse, it's from my father. Should I share this or not?
Please, Grace, everybody is willing to listen.
Because like, I think these 2 girls just now shared that their parents didn't understand what you guys were doing, right, in tech. My dad especially didn't understand why I'm into media right now. You know? So last year when my video went viral, right, the injury bands thing, right, and then I got interviewed by several people, and he asked me like, what are you doing? And he was confused, and he actually told me to not do it. Yeah, even until now, I think he's probably still, you know, kind of on the fence about this thing that I'm doing, right? So I think the biggest support that I really need to continue to, I don't want to say to prove to him, but the thing that I really want to get actually is from him, more anything else, right? I think it's the parent thing, it's still happening until now, unfortunately. Yeah. Let's say media, right? From back then when I was a kid, and mostly, I would say mostly until now, the media has always portrayed women on this specific one look, right? And you know what look I'm talking about? It's not me, to be honest, right? It's gonna be that beautiful, tall, fair skin, you know, big eyes, those kind of looks, right? I mean, when I was a kid, that's the image I always see in media, and I think to this, to a certain degree, I think until now it's still true. But of course, right now with social media, with the proliferation of more media, more children, more young girls have better options and choices, so they don't have to be force-fed into one specific image. So my job here, again, I'm given this privilege by God to produce content where people want to watch and listen and hear, right? So I have to give something that's positive about women. You know, again, who I am is not the typical women that you would see in media. If let's say today we don't have social media, if today we back to TVRI, those, I don't know, you guys know TVRI or not? Nggak tahu nih, TVRI, RCTI lah, right? I would not pass the muster. I would not have been hired by them to become, you know, the anchorwoman or whatever it is, right? I'll probably be behind the scene like those guys, you know, doing the camera, right? But again, you know, so if you know me even before I went to media, right? I've always looked like this, right? I'm not trying to do an image where, oh, I'm trying to be no makeup, no bags, whatever. It's not. It's always been me. And I think there's a lot of interest in women, not necessarily my age, even younger, who are refreshed by this kind of personality that is being real. And women can come in different forms and shapes and sizes. You don't have to always have just this one look, you know. So that's what I'm trying to do, to be positive, not just for my peers. Actually, for my peers, not important. It's for the next generation, because most of the peers, well, not you, but my age, right? Most of them already know what they're doing. They're very established, they're doing exactly what they're doing. I don't need to change their minds, right? But the younger generations, that's the one that I need to influence in a positive way. So that's what I'm trying to do. And I think that more and more women, content creators, are doing that as well. So that is very, very positive.
Thank you so much, Grace, for sharing about that. Now I want to move to Bella, which we know like Google is very have a lot of initiatives about this. So among many of the women-centric initiatives launched by Google, you are the co-leaders for Women at Google community in Indonesia. Can you share with us more the background of the program, and then for you yourself, what inspired you to volunteer becoming a co-lead for the Indonesian chapter?
Thank you. So I just want to introduce that in Google, Google is actually a tech company whose product is used by both women and male. So in the company itself, because the product is used by everyone, we need like women's perspective. It means like we need the product managers from women, so because they understand what your preference or your needs. And also inside, I agree with Ardelia as well. In the business side, women usually can provide like a very rich perspective in the meeting, especially in how the business operation can go more efficient, or more how can to optimize it. So that's how the leadership in Google, they understand, especially in STEM or tech company, it's very hard to find women even back then in the early days of Google. So they create this program or initiative we called Women at Google with the executive sponsor, just to make a structured program on with two prongs. One is to make sure the women can go to be educated and can be equipped to enter the tech world, and also when they're already inside the tech companies, they can strive as well. Because mostly women, they are not really like, they don't have like equal playing ground when they join tech companies. So this program is trying to make projects or activities just to make sure that we are playing in the same level field. Yeah.
Can you share more about what are some of the programs that these Google women at Google have done, and how do you think it has improved the level playing field internally at Google?
Yep. So in Google, in Women at Google, we do have like a global program, and also like chapter program. So chapter program actually they are customized within the regions. So or we call it like in Indonesia we call it Indonesian chapter. We customize some of the programs as well just to cater the needs. From the global program we have two kinds of activities. The first one is for developing on the career perspective. So for example, we have performance review regularly, and in performance review everyone has to rate themselves. Rating yourself, especially for women, is very different with how male are rating themselves. For example, when I joined Google like 10 years ago, when I did my self-assessment the first time, when I did a project and I know I'm not the lead because I just joined the company, I'm gonna put like, oh, Bella contributed to this project by doing this and this. It's gonna be like a laundry of task list. So if you say it on the self-rating, if you're the managers, is going to have a sense of you are undermining your influence in the job. Whereas guys, they are naturally going to say like, I orchestrated this and this and this to create this. If you compare it both, it's going to have the same meaning. You know, like, oh, I can get like both are talking about the same thing, but the magnitude or the size or the impact that when you read it is going to be different. So that's one of the program that we are running. We call it impactful writing. Especially we conduct it just before perf season, now we call it grad. And the second kind of activity that we are doing is more customized to the region in Southeast Asia. We do a mentoring session. We match mentor and mentees. The mentor can be women or women allies. That can mean like our leaders, male leaders. And then we match it the mentee across the Southeast Asia. And every mentee, they have to choose what are the areas they want to prioritize to work with the mentor. For example, if they want to work with the communication or the leadership, or maybe like just as simple as structured thinking, we source the mentors based on their strength and then match it with the mentees and put a structured program on. They have to make a weekly, what are the talking points they need to do. And at the end of the program, we do have some assessment as well, just to make sure by the end of the program, they have some impact. So it's not gonna be like, buang-buang waktu, the waste of time. So those are the two programs that we are running right now.
Thanks for sharing, Bella. I think it's kind of like practical, like policies. I think there's a couple of like events where we talk about like what practical thing we can do in our company if you want to start doing that. So thanks for sharing. We are ending our time and we will enter into a Q&A session, but maybe just a closing questions to all the three panelists over here. What advice would you give young women interested in pursuing career in tech, but who may face obstacles or barriers due to the gender or background?
This was very women, by the way.
Yeah. You first.
But I think for me, my advice, according to what I've said before, I do think it's really about unblocking yourself and starting with yourself first in terms of building your own confidence. And I think that's how you can then progress and take space and take room in any industry, especially male-dominated industry, right? And particularly, I think practically what has helped me is first, knowing your weakness. Second, really communicating your weakness to your boss, to your peers. I'm not good at this. This is gonna take me some time, etc. It really cuts down the insecurity and like all the nonsense by like a lot, right? And so I think that has been really helpful for me to build my confidence. And second, surround yourself with the right people, the right mentors. Choose the right partner. I think pasangan tuh penting banget sih for your women's journey. Yeah, I think that's all for me.
Thanks, Del. Grace?
I would focus once again to this time issue. Like, I regret about my time starting late in what I had to do. So you guys gotta really understand, you have to do it. If you really want to really do it. I know there's gonna be resistance from your parents, in my case, or spouses, whatever it is. But if you don't do it, you're gonna regret so much. And that feel of regret is just gonna eat you alive and you cannot turn back the time. So you know what, screw it, fuck it, to be honest, you know what I mean? Just say, okay, I'm a woman, so fucking what, you know what I mean, right? Women God has given us the opportunity to give birth, which is the most painful thing ever. So, you know what I mean, we are strong, we can do it. It's just like, the confidence thing has to be changed, the mentality. But really, you're gonna regret if you don't do it, so please do it, yeah?
You have to do it.
I agree with both ladies here. Just to add on that, because both of them are founders, but I'm still working in a company, so it's going to be a little bit different. I think the biggest one in my learnings is leadership without authority. So this term is actually, I learned it from Google itself. I learned that with leadership without authority, I have the power within me to solve problems without having an approval or a leadership backup, actually. So if I can just influence someone's with my capability, with my reasonings, with my arguments, I don't need to have a title of like a C-level or managers. If I can change something, I can just change it. So it's back to confidence again. So yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. Now, applause please for the three panelists over here. Any question from the audience over here? We'll also take questions from online audience. So please feel free to raise your hands and I'll hand the mic. Any question?
Hi everyone, I'm Adisti from Adjust, mobile analytics platform. So there's a statement which says working hard means taking care of your family. So as a mother and also provider for my 2-year-old son, I just want to gain some insight from yourself to overcome the guilt of not being present, in the early childhood of your child. Maybe you can share how to overcome the overwhelming sense of guilt, if for you who already been married, or if you're still single, maybe you can share also how to overcome the guilt of not giving the full of the maximum potential from yourself. Thank you.
So I guess you don't have kids, right? What else kids, right? All right, okay, then I guess it's me. All right. Right. See, the idea of guilt is a systemic thing, right? Where women have to feel guilty if they're not there, but the men don't have, right? I mean, don't need to feel guilty. I don't know why I never felt guilty, to be honest. Right? So why, my question is, why do you have to feel guilty in the first place, right? Because the responsibility is not just you, but it's also your husband, obviously, right? So why can't he feel guilty, right? I mean, again, like I think both of them already mentioned how it's important to have your spouse's support. I agree with that. Okay, you're a single parent. Do you have the privilege of having a helper at home to help you when you're working? You do, yeah. I mean that's a big help, obviously, right? But here's the thing, yeah. And this is my dad's teaching to me. You're a single mother, right? And how many kids do you have? One. If you don't work, let's say you stay at home, you cannot provide for your kid. You want the best for your kid for the long run, correct? So if you're staying at home but you cannot produce enough for your kid, you will actually feel bigger guilt down the road. You see, so I always tell my kid, like I said just now, being realistic. You guys have enjoyed a certain lifestyle, right? Do you want me not to work, really? And then you have a drop-off lifestyle? They say, no, go back to work. You're talking about long term, right? This kid's not just about development. Okay, I understand. You can still spend time on the weekends, holidays, whatever it is. But you also think the long term of the kid's education, healthcare, all of those things are not cheap, right? Especially in Jakarta. So I'm thinking more on that in that sense. So the guilt will not come because I'm just missing out, a few steps. I don't know, teeth falling, whatever it is. You know what I mean, right? I'm thinking about the long term. So I don't want to feel guilty later when this kid's like, how come, I don't have this, I don't have that, my friends have that. That's the one I'm trying to avoid.
Sorry, just want to add, I don't have kids yet, but I was raised by a single mom as well. What I remember. So my mom was working as well, like full time. What I remember was my mom was not there, wasn't during the weekdays, it's so hard to meet my mom. But during the weekend, she will make sure at least like 2 hours to go out, and that's my mom always told me that always like trying to make me understand what she's doing. And I grew up like I understand all the sacrifices, and I even appreciate her more with the understanding. So I think that's the key. Like, just make sure your kid understand what you're doing and make time for them. It should be fine. I mean, like we love our moms like unconditionally.
Thank you for the question. Any other question?
Yes. So my name is Tahir. I'm from Womenworks, and we're actually a women-first platform. So we're helping a lot of the corporates actually focus on D&I and actually focus on their inclusivity and how they're able to really implement that. But I think my question today is more personal to the panelists here, and it's something that's personal for me. So when we're talking about confidence, I myself am much more comfortable actually talking in front of people rather than going into a room like with you amazing women here and going up to someone and saying, hey, my name's Nadira, I'd love to get to know you. So networking for me was like a really challenging thing, right? Initially started. And I think Ardel, actually, I've met you before. So I think I know that everyone here, especially the panelists, have different ways of networking. So 2 questions. First is like, how do you usually initiate when you're the initiator? And then number 2 is when you have a network, how do you really maintain it? Because I think, tidak dapat dipungkiri lah ya, getting to places means actually utilizing your network and knowing who the people you want to work with are and who you want to keep in your circle. So I think to all panelists that would be my question. Thank you very much.
Adele, you want to start?
Yeah, we were just discussing about this earlier today, and I think we all agree that networking is amongst the hardest natural thing for women to do. Like, it's not natural for us to just meet a stranger and start the bro talk, So, to me, it's still a struggle. I still feel really anxious coming to this type of event and kind of like knowing that I have to put myself out there, kind of like shaking hands of people and establishing kind of like a connection with strangers. But I think there's no other way other than forcing it, right? I think the 3 seconds that you think, okay, gue lihat sana, pura-pura nggak lihat apa enggak? Itu kan cewek kayak, ini kenal tanggung, pernah ketemu, malas gitu. So I think there is no other way other than just facing it and saying hi, right? What's the worst that can happen, right? And I think second, it's really important, I think, to find your own style, right? And I don't think the necessary approach to networking is only kind of like being very bubbly, it could be very merit-driven. You can talk about business, right? And so, yeah, just establishing your style and kind of like forcing yourself to do it. And in terms of maintaining your network, I do think you don't have to force it. To me, ingenuine network is like the worst thing, right? Because you feel like whenever you're contacting this person, it's transactional. You will hate doing it. You will not like yourself for doing that. But if it's genuine, it's both sides, it's win-win. You're not only asking a favor, then it will come more naturally, right? So it's always in the back of my mind when I'm trying to utilize, quote unquote, utilize a network. Do I have something to bring to the table? Otherwise, I will feel super uncomfortable. Yeah.
Just a little bit sharing. I think in investors world, we do all this networking event all the time. I think over time I learned that you don't have to be all. You can, after you follow something, you can prioritize which one is important and which one is more important and pick your resource on that. I remember I was just sharing, I remember hiding in the toilet because it was just so energy draining to continue doing it. And what has helped also for me was, if there's a networking event, sometimes they have the list of the people who are attending. That kind of like help you to navigate who you want to network with rather than throwing yourself out and then draining of it. But like Ardel said, I think it's part of the thing, like in the interview also, like it's part of where it's important to do it, to put yourself out there, but there is always a way to prioritize. Thank you. I saw another raised hands. Okay. Okay, we have one over here and then front over here. And maybe if anyone from online can help to ping to me, send me the question. Yes. Okay, please.
Hi, I'm Anita from GoTo, but I'm here not from a company. Yeah, thank you so much for the session. I think this is my first networking event especially for women. But my question is not the same Nadina, right? So before she asked about networking, but I'm gonna ask two questions. First is about the mentor. So surround yourself with the right people, right environment, and right mentor. But sometimes I confuse how to ask someone to be my mentor. Even for example, my VP. But how is the frequent that I can ask for the mentorship itself? What if I don't even know what to mentor, but I just like his or her personality? But I want to learn about confidence, for example. But it can be one time, right? Then done. But then can I ask more, or even like for strangers? For example, I want Kak Grace to be my mentor. Should I just come and then, hi Kak Grace, I'm my mentor. I want to be your mentee, and then who are you? So that is the thing that I find it confusing. But every successful person, they always say like, always have mentor, always have mentor. But I always asking in my brain, how I should approach it, kind of like that. Yeah. And the second question is from my personal experience, but I just want to share it now to make it like in front of every woman. And there's a man, but no, let me not this woman day. So yeah, basically like, why do you think when women have ambition, even my friend and peer call me as ambitious person, but when a man have ambition, is oh my god, this perfect husband. Lu tahu gak sih dia keren banget, dia pengen bikin startup, pengen bikin perusahaan. When I said that I want to have my own startup, why being ambitious? I don't know like how to shut down that kind of voice, because like it sounds funny from them, maybe from your colleagues or something like that, but for me it goes a long way for me. So should I resign from my company and take the lead to build my own startup, which is almost, yeah. So I just want to say like how to shut down those kind of voice, because sometimes the one that make us not confident is even the voice from people around us, and they don't know that actually they are contributing to that voice. So thank you.
Thank you. I guess you can make it.
So I'm very fortunate in Google. There's a structured program to find a mentor. But before that, what I did was I usually choose mentor where with persons that I know is really close. So what I do is usually I just make a scheduled lunch with that person, whether there's like once a month or twice a month or something like that. And just like an agreement. Wait, I can just ask the person like, are you free like once a month we catch up like for a coffee or lunch or something. You don't have to label it as mentorship. It's actually scary for someone when they are asked like, can I be your mentee? Because it's a lot of responsibility. So you can label it anything, but in like the core thing is just like you have time. Both of you can discuss and discuss on whatever your questions you do have. So I think that can be the start. Yeah, and then maybe you can check with your HR if they can do like a mentorship program. Yeah, that's maybe put this in that.
Second question ya. Suaranya nggak dengeran ya?
Oh my God.
Mentor nggak usah ya, jadi yang kedua aja ya langsungnya ya. You say how to shut people's opinions kan? You don't. You have to shut yourself from thinking like that. You know what I mean? Seriously, it's like when I start my media, especially my family tuh, my sister suka ngolok-ngolok gitu loh. Lu kan harus bikin konten, lu kan harus in the band, jadi kalau kayak gitu terus kan ke depan kayaknya like whatever lah ya gitu. You know what I mean? I mean at first it's funny and then the umpteen times, like it's not funny anymore, right? But you don't try to shut them out, and you don't want to be rude to them, because they've been like kind of nice in their family and stuff like that. So you don't. You just kind of internalize yourself, like, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what people think. If you're ambitious or what, right? It's good to be ambitious. If you think ambitious is good, and why do you have to get validation from other people to think ambitious is not good? Right, so don't try to change people. You cannot change people. Simple as that, right? So go girl.
Okay, I think there's a question from this side. Already ended. Okay. Yes, I think the panelists will still be around. So due to the limited time, we can reach out directly. So thank you so much, everyone, for the participation. Hopefully, it's been great learning session, everyone.
Thank you, Ira, for helping me in moderating the discussion. And please, moderator, as we would like to give you token of appreciation and take some photos together.